All right, let's talk about unit formations. All right, so before we get started, I'm going to say that I'm using this person's coding quest. I'm using their selection system, and you can see that from their part 1 and part 2. Part 1 starts about 6 minutes in. Before that, pretty much just showing you how to set up a project, which is fine and all. They do have their own little RTS series here, but something they do not cover is what is requested on my channel, which is formations, which we're covering today. So if you already have a selection system, you'll have to work this in. And if you don't have a selection system, there is a coding quest here has a nice one. And basically, once you go through these 2 videos, you just need the first 2 parts. What you will have is the ability to draw out your selection zone and select your units, and then right click to set them off to go where you want them to go. Alright, so by the time you've done those 2 videos, that is what you should have by the end, and we're going to build off that. Now you can see over in the tree on the left hand side at my HUD is just a selection panel, which is just a panel, which is what we're using for drawing out our space here. You could use many different things, and again, he'll cover that as well as how he themed it in order to have this nice, smooth, transparent border going to the inner as well as rounding out the corner. So if you never messed with themes or theme overrides, you'll get introduced to that a little bit there. Now, what I have here is I have an addition of a node 2D here called formations, and this is where my formations are going to go. So I have one here called no formations, and this is basically when I don't have any formation selected, right? So if I just open that back up, so when I have no formations, it looks like normal. We don't see any blueprints or anything, but as soon as we swap and scroll to a new formation, we can see it. Now, what you're going to see in this video is if we have 1 selected, we're going to see the 1 slot. If we have 2, we have 2 slots. 3, we have 3 slots. If we have 4, we have all 4 slots. And I say all 4 slots because that's all I set up. But you could go through and set up 100 slots if you want to have a max of 100 in a specific formation. But alright, so now how did we make this happen? How do I make this happen from where we started in, or where you'll end off on the other video? Well, if you're curious and you're just coming in here, I'm going to start off with my unit character body. It has a collision shape, it has a sprite, and we're using a panel here for indicating when they've been selected, which is off by default. Scripts, we have 1 on the unit, 1 on the camera, 1 on the world. And if you're coming from the other video, you should already have all of that stuff set up. Now, my formations. So I named this scene tip formation. So we're going from our central point here. And you see, I'm just putting markers in each of my positions. So if I have 1 character selected, they're going to go here. If I have 2, they're going to go in both of these. Right? They're going to go to these. If I have 3, they'll go here. And if I have 4, they'll go in all 4. So that's pretty well how we're going to go with that. And then I have that added to my scene here in formations. And the way we select which ones are visible is when I scroll my mouse, we're basically going to be changing that index. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. I'll start here with the camera. And the only thing I've added here is these 2 variables, selected formation, which is an integer, and formations, which is an array, and I have to cast it as a node because that's what gets returned to us later. And in my ready function, then I'm going to set my formations variable equal to all of my children of formation. Right? So I'm going to get no formation, I'm going to get tip formation, and I'm going to get any other following formations that I create and add into this. Okay. Now I've added, as for my actions, I've added a scroll up and a scroll down, which is mouse wheel up and mouse wheel down. All of this should be default. This is just our drawing. So I'm just kind of scrolling through here so you can get an idea. And set formation visible is the function that I added into this. Everything else here is default. And what we're doing in here is we're going to take a number, put in here as our count, and we're going to run through a for loop. So if M in formations, selected formation, and then get child count, right? So that's basically going to say if we have tip formation selected, then we're going to get all of its children, which remember is going to be all of those markers. We're going to get the count of that. So if in our case we have 4, we're going to get a number back to us as 4. We're going to say if M is lower than count, which it is. We're running through a for loop here, right? So we're starting at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? All the way up until we break that, which could also go with a range in this for loop if you wanted. But we're going to go through and we're going to say if M is lower, then we'll get our selected formation, get child, pass M in as the index, and we'll set that visibility to being true. And that's how that's changing when we're selecting. So if I switch there, so we see we've got 1 there, we have 2, 3, 4, based on how many we have selected. That's what's determining this portion here. Right? And of course, else it's being set to false. So if we have too many selected, or anything past the amount of slots that we have, right? Now here's the inputs that I added, scroll up and scroll down. So when I scroll down, I'm going to get formations, selected formation, visible is equal to false. So what I'm doing here is basically whatever formation I had selected originally, whatever is currently being shown, we're going to set it to false. Then we're going to do, when we scroll down, we're going to select formation, which is going to be our new index, to the minimum number of either size -1, and we're doing -1 because remember, size, if we get, in this case, I only have 2, no formation and tip formation, so size is going to come back as 2, but if we try to put 2 in there, the index is going to be out of bounds, so we subtract 1. So we're either going to get size -1 returned to us, or we're going to get selection +1, right? Because I want to add 1 to our index. I want to go up a number. I'm scrolling. So selected formation, if we're on 0 of no function, then when we scroll up, it's going to become 1. And then I'm going to get that specific formation, which will be tip formation in this case, and we'll set it to true to be visible for us. Now, and when we scroll up, we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to get the max number between 0 and selected formation -1. And do the same thing. False before we set it, true after. And if selection formation not equals 0, then I'm going to get my formations dot global position. And I'm going to set that to where my mouse is. So it's basically going to follow my mouse if I have some kind of formation selected. And I'm just saying not 0 just so it's not following all the time. Because if it's no formation, it doesn't matter if it's following, you can't see it anyway. Now, area units.size, what is this? That we're passing into set formation visible. Well, this is coming from its parent, which is going to be the world script that we're using. And I called them area units. If you're coming from their videos, code quests, God, my memory sucks sometimes. They called them UT. I just took that out and created an actual variable for it to store this. So if I go over to my world now, as you see, I create a variable at the top called area units. He creates one later called UT. I'm replacing UT with my area units. Right, so we're going down. Of course, they're added to a group. We're getting all the units. All this is normal that they've set up. And here we go. We have this line here, which is effectively doing the exact same thing that I mentioned when I'm scrolling through. Except I'm doing it here as well when we select. When our areas, sorry, not areas, when our calculating which units will be selected from his video. So that's just doing the exact same thing. We're calling set formation visible, and I'm passing in the area units.size. So it's the exact same thing. So here's that for loop where he used for u in UT, and I'm using for u in area units. And you see I've created a variable here called idx for index. And this is going to be very important here. Okay, so I got set selected true on here, which is normal, that's what he had. And I added an ID variable to my unit, and I'm setting that equal to the index. And that is important here, very important, because this is going to give us an ID of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. all the way through all of our selected units. And we're using that when we set its target position of where to go inside of our formation. And index, plus equals 1, so we can add 1 to our index. Alright, next, what else did we change? Well, the last thing that we changed here is going to be on our units itself. So I'm just scroll up there, and I added 3 variables here. One, access to the camera. The ID, which I just showed you that we're changing, and I have a variable for my max distance. Alright, so if we go down and we notice the first thing that changed here that is not in his script is right here. So we have if follow mouse, if selected, and then this is where I add my own change here. So I say if cam.selected formation equals 0. So 0, this is if, remember, 0 index is going to be no formation here. So if I have no formation selected, max distance is going to be 20. And target.get global mouse position is what he had by default, right? So he just had that in there. So if selected, then you do this. And I added in these 2 lines. And that if statement for formation being 0, the max distance being set to 20, and our target get global mouse position is what we have with just our normal movement here. Right, so I just added 1 extra condition in there to make his code work alongside here, just to keep that max distance, because I do want to make a change. So if we don't have no formation selected, right? If it's not 0, we have tip formation or whatever else we have that we've added selected, we fall into this else branch. Now, if ID of our unit here, right, because this is on the unit script, so if our ID is less than getting our formations, passing in the selected formation, so we know exactly which formation we're looking at, get child count. Right, so in our case, we have a child count of 4. Right, we have 4 markers, so if ID is less than 4, then we're going to set its max distance to 5, and we'll set its target just like we did previously, only instead of setting it to the mouse position, we're going to set this to the formation of that marker, which is going to be our cam.formations. Pass in that cam.selected formation. We're going to get child and pass in the ID in order to get that. That way we can get child 0, child 1, child 2, child 3, child 4, and so on up to as many slots as you have in that formation. And get its global position. All right, so now our target now has its position. So if we were to take a look at that, you go in like this. So you see we only have 1 here, right? Because we have 1 selected. And we went over that. So we're going to get an index for this character as 0. So we're going to get child 0. which is the one that we have visible here. And he's going to set his target to being that position. So if I just click and leave my mouse here, he's going to move directly to it. And same thing if I had 2 selected, they're going to get child. One's going to have an index of 0, one's going to have an index of 1. So they're going to get child 0 and child 1. And they're going to, which are of course 2 markers that we're seeing here on the screen, represented by these transparent sprites. And when I right click, they're going to get those markers, get that position, set that as a target, and move to it. Same thing, we go to 3, and we do the same, right? We get child 0, child 1, child 2, which of course are all markers, and set each unit will set their target to those positions, and so on to 4. And once we reach to 5, remember, one of those are not going to move, because we have if ID is less than, right, the count that we have. So this little guy down here, just switch that, there we go. So this little guy here, he has an index of 5, or sorry, an ID of 5, because he was the 5th one added into this group. And because of that, there's not enough slots for him, so he doesn't move. And that's only when we have formations. So if we have no formation selected, he is going to move just like normal. Alright, hopefully that makes sense. Velocity being set here, he already had that. And then I make a tweak in here. So previously, all he has is move and slide, which is going to allow you to move. But I went ahead and added in that if max distance is equal to 5, which means we have a formation, right? Just remember, we're setting that up here. So if max distance is equal to 5, then I'm going to set the collision of this unit to disabled. And when we stop moving, if it is disabled, I'm going to set it to false. And the reason we're doing that is so we don't have collision issues with them all running up and maybe getting in the way of each other. So if I go like this, you can see they can just run right through each other to get to where they're trying to get to in their position for this formation. And you see, once they're in formation, as long as we keep this formation selected, they will remain in that form. Alright, and that's really it. So all we're doing is we have a way to select our formation here with my scroll up and scroll down. So I'll go back. And that's on my camera, right? Scroll up and scroll down. We're just selecting that formation. We're using set formation visible, which is just tweaking which slots are visible, which ones aren't. Over on our world, we're just adding in that function that we just went over to update it whenever we've selected units. That way it's not lagging behind on us. And on our units, main thing we change here is basically we have something. If we have a formation, set the target to that. Otherwise, set it to the mouse. Now you'll see if I come into my tip formation here, if I come in here and I just make a duplicate, and I just pull that down. So now we have 5 slots, and that's all I did, right? I just added in a new marker. And you'll see, there we go. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, just like before. But now I've got all 5 positions. So you see, all you have to do now is just make those markers. And you can go and make whatever formations you want from this point. Alright, so I just paused the video and I just came in here and I created a new formation called diamond formation. I've added my positions. The first marker is going to be the guy in the middle, and then they're slowly going to surround them as we add more characters. So all I would have to do now is go to my world, go to my formations node here, add diamond formation, turn it off by default, and that's it. So I can just come in and I can just start using that formation already. So if I select all 5, you see I scroll up, we're getting to nothing. I scroll down, you can see my other formations here. So you see my tip formation doesn't really make any sense anymore. We don't have much of a tip with 5 of them. But you see, I can just scroll, and now I've got this diamond formation, and they just get in position. So you can see all I have to do now is just create these formations and just add them into my list. And the code will just continue working without any extra work. So if you have your own selection system, hopefully that made sense to you. And if you don't have a selection system, again, go ahead and check out Coding Quest here and check out their first 2 videos in their RTS series to get the same selection that you saw here in this video. And then you can just follow along with this video with the tweaks and changes that I added in order to add our formation system. Again, hopefully that wasn't too confusing. This video is getting a little long, so I didn't want to include basically regurgitating the same information that he would have given for creating this selection. Alright, that's it. Take care. Have yourselves a good one. And again, hopefully that wasn't too confusing for anybody.